Hello everyone, I am Timofey Kazantsev, a concert pianist. I'm also a teacher. I have been doing this for almost 15 years. I teach at all levels, from 4 years old, from the very youngest to conservatory students. I work with them as an assistant or as my own students. Now I have about 30 students in my class. And I often find myself explaining the same thing in class. Moreover, in order to explain a topic completely, I need to spend quite a lot of time. And the lessons are quite short in Germany, especially here, lessons are 30 to 45 minutes. And spending, say, 30 minutes in order to explain how the pedal works is also a little unreasonable. And that is why I want to collect videos on this channel, each on its own topic, so that I can share them with students and so that people who are interested in some questions can also resolve them for themselves. Today we will deal with perhaps the most important question for any pianist and in general for any performing musician. What is interpretation? How to interpret the piece? How to find the meaning in it? And what can be, as it were, played under the slogan, I'm an artist, this is how I see it, and what is simply considered a nonsense and a bad taste. I now will play this several times. This piece by Tchaikovsky from the Seasons, March Song of the Lark. And let's just try to say, which of these options is interpretation and which is nonsense? Well, one more option. So after all, which one? The first, second, or third? Of course the second. Why? What is the difference? I played three completely different options, but for some reason the first and the third made sense, it was different. We can argue about the taste, what someone likes more, what someone dislikes more, who likes what tempo, who likes what pedal, but for some reason the first and the third made sense, but the second one didn't. The thing is that music in general has its own laws, which we are gradually discovering. Music is also a language, it functions according to its own rules. Let's say, the first inviolable rule that the melody is the most important part of the piece. If there is a melody, then we show the melody. There is no point of showing the chords. There are also harmonies. And harmonies also tell their own story. If you can't hear the harmony, if everything falls into the mess, then the meaning is lost. And so, step by step, you can find those things that are important. In addition, we have what the composer wanted to write. It's like a book that you open and read. All the strokes, staccato, legato, legato, the next legato, accent, and legato. They are already here, they are in the work, and they have their own meaning. The question is how I, as pianist, hear it. I can hear it as a very precise melody, really chirping. I can hear it as a sad song in the forest with an echo. I can hear it not as a song of the lark, but as a song of a person, as a song of maiden. And accordingly, here it will be also a different song. Or it is a response of some other bird, or it's some echo of nature to the melody that the lark sang in this distant forest. Or this is a male counterpoint. And strictly speaking, offering options for solving this melody, I chose the genre in which I will be. Either it is an imitation of nature, or it is an imitation of bird singing, or it is a story about some picture, or it is a vocal story about human pronunciation, about human singing. And when I choose the key in which I begin to move, then the other parts of the work start to obey it, like the characters of the books that also write themselves. They develop their own character, they cannot act in some way as perhaps the author would like them to. The same thing with us, with pianists, with musicians, with performers. When we begin to imagine these melodies as separate characters or phenomena, when the whole piece had its own picture, its own idea, then each element begins to play into hands of this idea. And our task is actually simply to see as many connections, possibilities in the piece as possible, and to show them. So, what can be interpreted and what cannot? The base answer will be this. There is musical text. Everything that is written in the notes is already embedded. If there is dynamics piano, then it won't be forte. Then it will be a march. Of course, you can try to make the song forte. But that's not what was planned. This music is not inclined to it. And everything that is in the note is already shows the possibilities that we have. The second thing is harmonies, melodies, and how they are located with each other. We need to make several plans. Look, there is harmony, there is bass voice, a kind of holding one, there is a melody with its ligatures, crescendo, accents. So if you just play according to notes, it will be already good. And what is written in the notes? Let's quickly run through all main elements that you need to see in the notes. So, what do I see here? Tempo. Andantino espressivo. Andantino is not very slow, agile, I would say. Let's say moderata is moderate. Andante is a walking pace, measured. Andantino is something between moderata and andante. Well, more like this. Tino is a general diminutive suffix, therefore it should be a little bit more in a simpler way probably than andante, and espressiva means expressive. These two words can be interpreted. For someone it will be this tempo, for someone it will be the other. Both are possible, and in general, in fact, tempo is one of the main things that influence interpretation. The way we feel the movement of music, the way we understand this expression of the composer. Tempos are always written very expressively, andantina espressiva. Pacchettina più mossa. Pacchetta is carefully, and pacchettina is placed much more careful. Più, more movement, mossa. Place, much more careful but with movement. Poco più forte. Più forte is very loud but place, poco. Carefully. A little. A little of very good forte. Let's take some other piece. Allegro giusto. Also very expressive. Fast with patient, I would say. Moderata simplissima espressiva. Moderately simple but expressive. In almost any piece, the composer writes something interesting about the tempo. Next, dynamics has been noticed. Accompaniment, bass, melody has been noticed. Legato, staccato, in general, all the strokes, phrasing has been noticed. Dynamics has been noticed. The first phrase is over has been noticed. A melody in the left hand, new melody, has been seen. So here it will be an accompaniment. So look, this is very often not noticed. A long bass, by the way I didn't play it very well just now either. A long bass which represents some kind of the melody and then with pauses. Romantic composers have a lot of this. Tchaikovsky, Chopin, Schumann, and almost no one ever pays attention to how the bass is written. This is very important. Melody, phrasing, dynamics, in general everything is clear. Accompaniment. The sub-voice to the melody, how to play it. Also should be noticed and think about this. This is a good moment for interpretation. You can directly show yourself as a performer. Cadence. Da 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 ra dum. Cadence of the first sentence of this part, and this is also a moment in which you can answer the question how to show the ending. What kind of ending is this? A long bass, and here in general the harmony will be built in turn. This seventh chord emerges on the already prepared bass. Here one can show himself as a performer, to find how to show this D in which will most likely fall like a little drop, how to show this harmony, how to find a balance between everything, how to do this diminuendo right. Then, the new part. Pacchettina più mossa. How più mossa? For someone, it is pacchettina più mossa, and for others, not. Well, pacchettina didn't they say? I moved it a little. One more good question. Poco più forte. How più forte? This is if we play loudly. Then we immediately ask ourselves, how about the genre? Will our genre change here? Will it be in accordance with our genre if we still want to follow the composer here and play really più forte? We need to find a relationship between genre and dynamics too. Honestly, I'm not sure here. in general, it's very difficult with dynamics here, because then there will be the next sentence that begins piano. And here we ask ourselves, was it forte and did it become piano? That is, all this crescendo diminuendo, are they within the framework of forte? Do they just make a little louder or quieter? Or do diminuendos go deeper than crescendos? And then we will come to piano a bit more measuredly. This is a question you can ask yourself. You can ask yourself, how should the grace notes sound? Should they be melodic grace notes? Should they be playful grace notes? How should they sound? Who are these grace notes about? What else can you ask yourself? Well, not really interesting harmony. Here is some kind of obvious culmination. These are interesting thirds. Can be shown somehow. Is it necessary to slow down here? He does not write. Maybe we need to continue. I'm somehow used to slow down here. Then comes the next part. Piano. The question, what is about the pedal? Should it be like this? Or completely dry? Or a little? Also a good question. How hard should you make the crescendo and diminuendo? How much should it beat in the heart? Poco ritenuto. How much? Well, a tempo is clear, the tempo in which we played. The next question. The main part, the exposition and repeat part. Should they be the same? Should it be the same story which is repeated in the same way, or should it be the different somehow? The text, of course, is almost the same here, except for very end. But still, is it a repetition of what we like, or it's some kind of reflection on how it was before? Then, we notice that there is a cadence here. What is this cadence for? Are we flying away? Are we dying? Are we falling silent? Are we sad? Are we happy? What does it for? What does it say? Here, once the introduction of the theme, then the same in the second, and then a repetition of the very last fragment. Apparently this is very important, he repeats it, and since it's important we need to ask ourselves, what is this intonation about? What emotion does this intonation have? Depending on the answers to this question, you will get an interpretation. Let me try to make two interpretations now. And I will answer all the questions differently. First, the genre, yes. Now I'm telling myself that I'm playing an aria from Tchaikovsky's opera.
Моя душа предчувствием полна, моя душа.
Accordingly, Andantino is just pretty slow, I would say. The melody will be denser, vocal. The accompaniment will be also more orchestral. It's all about the orchestra and singing. Accordingly, all these strokes, they will be a little more smoothed out. And all this will be more like a voice with an orchestra. It will be definitely a good counterpoint. Maybe a kind of duet, sudden duet in this area. Also, perhaps we will have such an ariosa, not very much faster, but with such a dense, good vocal pronunciation. And let me try to keep the forte for this option, but make a ritenuto. Forte but ritenuto. We will have all this on forte, and then there will be a fragment of a completely different plan, with different emotions, more disappointed, and here we're almost going to die, then go back, and it will be just like in the beginning. Like at the beginning, a little more plaintively, especially at the end, these intonations, so that it hurts from these intonations. Let's try. Another interpretation. I answer all this question, well, not strictly the opposite, then completely differently. Andantino espressiva. Well, expressively, but with movement. Now this is a real lark for me. This is a sound imitation, onomatopoeia.
Ребенком я любил пить чай, естественно, с пирожным и лучше всего с безе.
There will be a forest, there will be a space in the pedal, there will be more expressive texture with the bass, there will be such an ensemble of nature, I would say so. This little voice may be so soft like an echo. What else? I'll move it forward a lot. I'll be very active, trampam, 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 pam pam, like a lark. I'll go down to the piano. I won't do a ritenuta. And it will all be loud chirping, about different chirping. We will just enjoy this pastoral beauty. Poco ritenuta also will be less, and in the end, I'll try to play with this a little. I don't know how I'll do this, but I'll try to show this a little new way, like a variation on the previous song. And now these intonations will no longer be so sad, but rather warm, I would say. This is my design now, this is the interpretation. A completely different mood, a completely different state, different tempos. And all this is a matter of taste. Here I, as a pianist, ask myself, I am Timofey Kazantsev, what am I trying to say here? What did I hear here? Did I hear this lark or another? Again, you can think about Tchaikovsky. What kind of composer is he? What did he write for? Did he write more arias with orchestra, or was he more interested in fairy tales and stories like did Grieg or Rimsky-Korsakov? All this baggage, cultural baggage, knowledge of the context, they help answer all these questions. The questions are all the same for everyone, yes. Why piano? What does it mean? What exactly does andante e pressiva mean? The questions, they are dictated by musical laws. The way you answer them is dictated by the cultural context in which you find yourself. And here everyone can say for themselves, I like this interpretation, this pianist, or I don't like this. And we can also talk about how thoroughly and well he immersed himself in this interpretation. For example, I haven't played any of this as well as I would have, say, played this piece by myself. By the way, I will have it on my main channel. I think a bit later I will post all these seasons well recorded. The quality of pianism will be assessed somewhat separately from the interpretation. Yes, we can talk about some performance errors within the framework of the interpretation. This doesn't work here, well, it doesn't work.
От такого выстрела не умрешь. Ну не умрешь. А он у автора умирает.
I made some mistakes with pedal. I didn't like my dynamics somewhere. I didn't like the tempo somewhere. Now we answer the questions for ourselves. What doesn't correspond to what we have come up with? to the picture we have drawn for ourselves. We try to detail it a little bit and saw some more details that again didn't fit into the picture, and we tried to adapt this picture a little bit to adapt our vision of the piece. And so step by step we go through perhaps the most important main cycle of our work.